officer discovers his wife's affair, then does the unthinkable. The first shot wasn't the one that destroyed everything. It was the moment he looked through the window and believed the worst. By sunrise, one man would be dead. A respected police officer would lose everything he had ever worked for, and an entire community would be left asking the same haunting question. How did a husband sworn to protect lives become the one who took one? This wasn't a crime committed by a hardened criminal hiding from justice. It was a tragedy fueled by suspicion, obsession, and one decision that lasted only a few seconds, but carried consequences that would last forever. November 10th, 2019, Athens, Georgia. The quiet suburban neighborhood had already settled into another ordinary evening when terrified screams shattered the silence. Seconds later, multiple gunshots echoed through the streets. Panicked neighbors froze. A desperate 911 call came in from a woman whose voice trembled with fear. "My husband just shot someone. Please hurry." At that very moment, 26-year-old Benjamin Lloyd Clover lay bleeding in a driveway, struggling to breathe as officers raced toward him. No one knew if he would survive. But what made the situation even more terrifying was this. The shooter hadn't run. He was still inside the house, armed, waiting. As deputies surrounded the property, they quickly realized they weren't dealing with an ordinary suspect. The gunman refused to surrender, calmly pacing inside, while his terrified wife remained trapped outside, with nowhere safe to run. Then came the shocking discovery. The armed suspect wasn't a criminal. He was one of them. 32-year-old Trey Adams, a sheriff's deputy, a man trained to respond to hostage situations, a man who knew exactly how police tactics worked. And now every responding officer understood they were facing someone who could predict nearly every move they made. The standoff instantly became even more dangerous. Inside the house, Trey called 911 himself. His voice sounded strangely calm. "I just shot somebody." The dispatcher asked why. Instead of answering, Trey only wanted to know one thing. Is he still alive? Outside, officers desperately tried to save Benjamin Lloyd as blood soaked through his clothes. "Stay with us! Who shot you?" "Trey!" Those were some of the last clear words Benjamin managed to say before paramedics rushed him toward the hospital. While emergency crews fought to save his life, detectives began asking the question that would define the entire investigation. Why? Why would a respected law enforcement officer suddenly shoot an unarmed man? The answer pointed toward someone standing only a few feet away. Trey's wife, Charlotte. Still shaking with fear, she told investigators her husband believed she was having an affair. She insisted Benjamin wasn't her lover. "He was just my friend." According to Charlotte, Trey had become increasingly possessive over the past several months. He constantly tracked her phone, questioned where she went, and grew suspicious any time she spoke with another man. That evening, she had gone to Benjamin's house for dinner. She admitted they had been sitting close together on the couch. She admitted Benjamin had wrapped an arm around her while comforting her because she was anxious Trey might show up. But she insisted they had never kissed, never had an affair, never crossed that line. Then the front door burst open. Trey stood there, holding a handgun. Charlotte screamed. Benjamin jumped up and ran. Gunfire exploded through the house. Benjamin never even turned around. Investigators later learned he was shot while trying to escape. As the standoff dragged on outside, Trey repeatedly asked officers if Benjamin would survive. His voice suggested regret, but the damage had already been done. Hours later, detectives questioned Trey inside the police station. What they heard was a man emotionally broken by jealousy. He described years of insecurity, sleepless nights, fear of losing his wife, and months of convincing himself that Benjamin was the man destroying his marriage. He admitted he had tracked Charlotte's phone, driven past Benjamin's house multiple times, finally parked nearby, walked up to the window, and looked inside. What he believed he saw shattered every bit of self-control he had left. "I just wanted the truth," Trey told detectives. He claimed he never intended to kill anyone. He said everything happened in slow motion, that once Benjamin started running, he fired without thinking, without aiming, without even realizing what he was doing. But investigators uncovered a devastating reality. Benjamin had been running away. He wasn't attacking Trey. He wasn't armed. He was simply trying to survive. Doctors fought desperately to save him. They couldn't. Benjamin Lloyd Clover died from his injuries. When detectives finally informed Trey that Benjamin hadn't survived, the reality of what he had done appeared to hit him all at once. He buried his face in his hands. His career was over. His marriage was over. An innocent man was dead. Nothing he said could ever change that. For investigators, the case became far more than another homicide. It exposed how unchecked jealousy, emotional isolation, and obsessive suspicion can slowly consume someone's judgment until one irreversible moment changes countless lives forever. On March 14th, 2022, Trey Adams pleaded guilty to felony murder and aggravated assault. He was sentenced to life in prison, plus an additional 10 years. A respected deputy became a convicted murderer. A husband lost his wife. A family lost their son. And one decision made in a few emotional seconds became a life sentence that no one involved would ever escape.